Teachers, thank you so much for joining us today. And we are going to have a demo for FluencyLink. And the very exciting news that I'm bringing to you is Adventures in Japanese will be launched in this brand new online program, FluencyLink. I'm going to do a very quick and brief introduction of Adventures in Japanese. Adventures in Japanese is a well-received textbook series authored by experienced high school Japanese teachers. It is designed to be used in a 4-year high school world language program with articulations for Japanese course 1, 2, 3, as well as AP Japanese. Now, you can only see 3 books here. And I'm going to bring you into the 4th book. You can see that Adventures in Japanese 1, 2, 3 and Dikuru will be the materials for AP Japanese with strong emphasis in exam preparations. All 4 volumes are firmly based on actual proficiency guidelines and support students to acquire Japanese language and build their understandings of the culture as they learn to communicate in real life, having successful exchange of daily interactions. The components of this series, Adventures in Japanese and Dikuru, including 3 levels of AIJ, and the last volume is for the last course. Each volume corresponds to about a year of study. And we have print textbook, print workbook, we have a teacher's resources file pack, and we also have online student edition and teacher's edition. To support your classroom instructions, AIJ packed with a large variety of teacher's resources. It includes general resources with kanji flashcards. We have a correlations to ACFLs and some of the state standards, also with College Board requirement. We also have a kanji PowerPoint with different font type for each of the volume, including curriculum overviews as well as professional development articles. In the professional development articles, we have OPI, we have information about assessment as well as the AP exam. In the lesson-specific resources, we have a full audio to support your teaching and also workbook exercise. We have the audio and script. We have assessment for each lessons, and we have rubrics for you for grading. We also have the manga images and pacing guide, scope and sequence to help you plan your lessons. As you all know, since the release of AIJ and Dikuru, we only offer a very limited PDF online version on an e-reader. To improve and enhance the language learning experience for you and your students, we invest in making a brand new online platform, FluencyLink. This new platform have access to the digital textbook, workbook, and the resources. It will help to improve the learning and teaching experience for Japanese lessons. We also understand that there are new requirements from districts and schools technical departments. So we include in FluencyLink a lot of technical enhancements to make sure that it had integration with ClassLink and Google Classroom. And we also can consider other integrations just as like Canvas or other LMS platform. We also plan for a single sign-on and with enhanced rostering capability, like one rosters. The good news is we also will offer offline access to the e-reader as well as supporting mobile phone and tablet device. Here is a very quick view of what the new system will look like in FluencyLink. All our content, Adventures in Japanese level 1, 2, and 3, as well as Jiguru, will be launched in this platform in the coming fall for the next school year. I'm going to hand over the share screen to Kate, my colleague, and she will take you to a tour of our new platform, FluencyLink.
Okay, thank you, Cecilia. 先生方、こんにちは。私はチャンガンツェイのデジタル部のキャサリン・ザンギ、それともケイトと申します。聞いてくれてありがとうございます。今からフルエンシーリンクを説明します。Everyone, thank you for coming. My name is Kate. I am a member of the digital department at Cheng Tsui, and I will be showing you adventures in Japanese on our very exciting new FluencyLink platform. So we have several tiers of access on FluencyLink, and all look different and have different functions. Today, I'll be showing you administrator, teacher, and student. So first, I'll log in as an administrator. The first thing that any user sees when they log in is their dashboard. As the administrator, I can see the most engaging books that my teachers and students are using. Right now, we have the Adventures in Japanese Volume 1 textbook and workbook. I can see the amount of time that teachers and students are spending on these particular books. And as a district admin, should that be the case, I will see all the books that are applicable to my district, such as further volumes in the series or other languages, such as Chinese. Teachers will be receiving access to books via the administrator, as the administrator portal is mainly where rostering and licensing happens. What I mean by licensing is the granting of content. Let's take a look at the library. Content, when we say it in FluencyLink, means books. So here you can see the Volume 1 textbook and the Volume 1 workbook. The administrator, whether at the school or district level, receives access to the content or book from Cheng Tsui. The administrator then grants access to the content to the teacher, who can then grant it to their students. The administrator can also roster on behalf of the teacher, which is the more common scenario. And there can be more than one administrator, either at the school or district level. There does have to be one primary administrator. However, especially if you have a large district or many teachers in your school, it helps to share the load a little bit. Cheng Tsui will give a license with content to the administrator, who will then add students. I'll show you that in our license tab. So we see that the license is listed here and the number of licenses given. An administrator can check the content that they've been given in the license. In this case, you can see the Volume 1 textbook and workbook that I showed you in the library from the content menu earlier. And they can also check the number of licenses that have already been used and by what type of user. They can drill down into this further in the roster menu. Like Cecilia mentioned earlier, there are quite a number of integrations that we're able to do with FluencyLink, such as OneRoster, Google Classroom, and many other types. I won't be showing you those in today's demo just because there are so many different options. But even if you don't use an integration, you also have options like bulk upload or uploading manually. And you can always check the content that you've assigned by clicking that little book, same as in the license menu. You can export classes. So if you need a record, you'll have it in the CSV file. This is also where you can add teachers for your school. As you can see, again, we have the content, the email address, and the bulk upload and bulk update options. And lastly, we have the student. Both administrators and teachers have the option of adding students. Most of the time, it will be by the administrator. However, teachers will have the flexibility of doing this as well. If they're administrators, I can circle back with more later, but for now, I'll move on to the teacher profile. So again, you're seeing the dashboard first thing when you log in, except this has some more information than the admin profile. You can see the amount of time that your students have spent reading. Because this is a demo account, there isn't as much information in here as you will see when you're using the FluencyLink platform in your classroom. But as you can see, we have most engaging books, total books read, and even homework progress. You can drill down further into the time spent data to see the amount of time that students have spent with their textbook, as well as time spent on audio, video, and activities. You can even get a report that will show this. Pardon the interruption. So you can even export this as a report either in CSV, Excel, or PDF format. So you again get this nice bar chart, and you also get it typed up like this. So you can see it down to the second. And just in case you're worried, a student can't just leave up the FluencyLink platform in another tab and have it record while they're idle. FluencyLink will only record while a student is actively using their textbook. So you can closely track how well they're able to use their book. So as I mentioned earlier, the teacher will receive their content from the administrator. Let's look at the library again. So the administrator received the Volume 1 textbook and workbook from Cheng Tsui, which they then granted to the teacher. In the case of an administrator not rostering the students, the assigned content menu is where a teacher would assign the textbooks to students. As you can see here, a teacher can choose the individual books. They can assign to classes, to groups of smaller students, or even to individual students. So there's a lot of flexibility in FluencyLink to really tailor down to your individual students' needs. If you'd ever like to check back to see just what you've already assigned, you can go to your assign history and click the little people button. In this case, I can see as a teacher that I have assigned this book to Demo AIJ 1 class. Again, this is usually done by the administrator, but in some smaller cases, this may be done by the teacher as well. In the My Upload section, this is where you can share items with your students that you have personally created, such as newspaper articles or extra activities or videos or photos that you might want to share with them. By uploading and then clicking these 3 buttons at the side, you can share them. And these will appear in the students' shared files on their dashboard, which I'll show you once we get to the student profile. Now we'll move on to homework. As you can see here, we have a number of different homework assignments. After you assign homework, you can see the due date, who you've assigned it to, the number of students that have responded, whether or not you need to evaluate it yet, and the responses that have been given. let's take a look at how you can create a piece of homework. Now, homework is different from this assessments menu in a couple of ways. Homework in FluencyLink is defined as something that's a little bit more freeform. It's something where you create a freeform question and the student submits a freeform response. It isn't auto-scored, so it's a little bit more of an open opportunity for you and your students to get a little creative. You can see here that you can attach files directly to the homework, and you can also link content. If you remember the My Uploads folder that I just showed you a moment ago, the vocabulary list that I uploaded there and shared with my students can be linked to the homework that I'm creating here. And again, you have that great flexibility of being able to give it to your whole class, smaller subgroups in the class, like reading groups or more advanced groups, or to individual students. Now let's take a look at a homework submission that has been submitted but not yet graded. By clicking on this blue bubble, I can look at it in a little bit more detail. I can see for this class demo AIJ1 that one student has not yet submitted their answer. Therefore, I cannot yet give feedback or evaluate their submission. In this case, the student has typed out their answer. Let's take a look. I can choose 10 out of 10 on a scale of 1 to 10, and then I can choose to give the student feedback on their submission. This allows for individualized, direct connection with your student, and you can even allow them to resubmit if you'd like to give them another go. Once you're done, you'll be able to select by content, group, or class. Now, I mentioned assessments earlier. The difference between homework and assessments is that assessments are largely auto-scored. Assessments can be bundled as tests, quizzes, or assignments. They're an opportunity for you to create assignments, tests, or quizzes from a variety of question types. Here are some of the types of questions that you can submit. As you can see, something like a descriptive answer, an audio recording, or a comprehension answer might be something that's not auto-graded because it requires more human touch. However, the majority of the questions are auto-graded. And as you create each question, drawing from perhaps the teacher resources in AIJ to base your questions on, they'll be saved in the question bank for you to draw on for future assessments. Here are some examples that we've created for this demo of the kinds of things that you can do. This is a single choice assessment. You can see here that I've selected this is the true answer for the question. The terminology in FluencyLink will list this as a test. However, I'd like to remind you that this can be anything that you choose. You can consider this a test, you could consider it a quiz, or just a regular assignment. The standard test format allows you to combine these questions together into a bundled format. Let's take a look at an assessment that has been completed but not evaluated. As you can see here, this is an objective question, whereas this is a subjective question, i.e. something that will require the teacher to grade individually and cannot be auto-scored. So now let's look in a little bit more detail at the evaluation process. So right at the top, you can see when you assigned it, when it's due, the number of questions, and also whether or not you've set a time limit, and if so, what that would be. As we can see, one student has not yet responded. You can choose to send a personalized reminder or reassign it in case you'd like to give the student another go at it, just like with homework. Let's take a look at the pending evaluation. Right at the top, you can see the amount of time that the student spent on the assignment, as well as how they've done so far. In this case, because one question is objective and auto-scored, this has already been given a score of 1 out of 2. However, it is still pending evaluation because it has this subjective question here, the or the recording question.
お姉さんが2人、弟が1人。
After listening to the student's audio submission, you can choose to give their score here, enter individualized feedback for the question if you like, and at the end, you can also choose to write individualized feedback for the overall assignment. And if you don't finish it all at once, you can save it as a draft and come back to it whenever you get a chance. You can also choose to override scores, just in case you may not agree with the assessment score given, or if you, again, like to give your student another go at it. Lastly, we have the performance report section. This is another way that you can export your students' results. This shows all of your students in one class and how they've been doing on their assignments. You can export these results to Excel, and there's a variety of ways to sort them. You can sort by book or content. You can sort by questions, whether or not they've been evaluated. You can sort by assessment or assignment date, which you can also filter up here, and then subsequently export to Excel. Back in the evaluation menu, you do also have options here. However, these are more individualized in the cumulative report. Because not all students have submitted, you do not have a full report available. So please note that you will have to have submissions from all students in order to get a cumulative report. As an example, this due date has passed, and therefore we can see how well the class did. In this case, we can see that 50% of students in the class got it right and spent an average of maybe about 5 seconds on these questions. And then FluencyLink will also average the scores, and you can export this to Excel as well. Now that we've gone over the teacher view, I'll show you the student view. So the dashboard looks quite different for a student than for a teacher or administrator. It's much simpler, and it's easy to see all of the functions right off the bat, making it simple for students to hone in on assessments and homework that they may have to do. As soon as they log in, they can see their books or content, as well as their shared files. Before we get into the books, I'll just show you the shared files. You can see this is where my uploads from the teacher profile are. This is the vocabulary list that I shared with the students. So without further ado, let's take a look at what the book actually looks like. So the ebook has standard ebook conventions. Students can expand to full screen, zoom in and out, search the book, page to and fro, go directly to pages by entering the number up top, change view types. Students can also bookmark, highlight, or add notes. These bookmarks will be saved in the bookmark, notes, and highlights section. This will allow the student to jump automatically to the page that's been saved. The bookmarks, notes, and highlights sections all function similarly. In the Contents tab, students can navigate directly to sections in the lessons, much like a table of contents in the textbook. By clicking Lesson 1 Review, I'm immediately taken to that section in the page. You can also see this little audio icon. This is a great feature to have and what we call a hotspot. This will allow the student to listen to the relevant audio directly in the page. They can adjust the playback speed as well here, or download it just in case they'd like to listen perhaps on their phone or on another audio device to review while they're walking perhaps. You can also see all of the audio resources in the Resources tab to navigate directly. Students also have documents listed for their resources that they can use to augment their studies. Teachers will have additional resources here that the students will not be able to see in a separate tab here that says Teacher Resources. Now we'll go back to the library to quickly show you assessments and homework. As I mentioned before, homework is a free-form style, both on the teacher and student mode. You can see up here, we have due homework, submitted, and graded. This makes it very easy for a student to see what they have to do. The student will have a variety of options to format their homework, as well as the option to submit an image, audio file, video, or document. They can also save their work and come back to it later. In this case, the student has submitted their homework, but is still waiting for evaluation. So they'll always see this little banner, letting them know that they still have to wait for their teacher's grade. In this case, they've gotten a grade. They can see the score right off the bat and their grade. If they click it, they can drill down to see their teacher's feedback and when it's been given. In the assessment option, there's an additional banner that says whether or not an assessment has been missed. Again, you can remind or reassign assessments to students that have perhaps missed assignments. For assignments that have not yet been completed, students can choose to get a glance at what they have to do, the number of questions and whether or not there's a time limit, as well as when it's due. For assignments that have been submitted, they can see what they submitted as well as listen to audio recordings that they submitted. And they will again see this banner that declares that it is waiting to be graded. For an assignment that has already been graded, at a glance, they'll see their score. And by opening it up to see the details, they'll see a fuller set of results with the number that are of questions that were submitted correctly, partially correctly, incorrectly, or skipped. They'll also see questions that were submitted incorrectly with the correct answer highlighted. Lastly, we have the Notifications tab. This will give notifications even with the detail of when an assessment or homework has been updated. So anytime that you change something, you don't need to remind your students, go check your homework. They'll see it all right here. One final note is that students can change their names in their profile as well as change their password. Because FluencyLink is directed largely towards younger users in the K-12 market, there are some very friendly features. Because the administrator and teacher have the option of rostering for students, They also have the option of creating a master password for all students in a certain class. They can also reset passwords individually, so you never have to worry about your students being unable to log in because they've forgotten their password or they're not sure how to reset it. So that's it for the student, teacher, and administrator profiles on FluencyLink. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope that you get to take a look at FluencyLink with your students in fall 2020. 先生方、ありがとうございました。